What up, folks? This is Pop Culture. I'm Alex Pop, and today I have something that I've been wanting to get off my mind for the last 5 months regarding Michael Bay's Transformers franchise. Spoilers ahead, and also maybe an ounce of fanboying. First off, some background on my experiences with these movies. In 2011, I was starting to become a regular moviegoer, and with Transformers Dark of the Moon just about to hit theaters, I had to get started with its predecessors. I watched the first movie at an overnighter with the guys in my youth group, and it was a satisfying good time. It lacked some thrust, and the Autobots show up a bit too late in the movie, but when they were there fighting the Decepticons, it was exhilarating, energetic escapism. Unfortunately, I couldn't say the same about the follow-up, Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, a sequel that was plagued dreadfully by the writer's strike of 2008. It had some worthy action moments, but they were so few and far between, and took a back seat to obnoxious characters, and so much bizarre crass humor that obviously no one going to a Transformers movie wanted to see. Even Michael Bay himself admitted that it was bad, and it shows that he listened to the criticism because he came back with Transformers Dark of the Moon, a third installment leaps and bounds better than the second. On my 17th birthday, I went with some friends to the theater to see it, and we all loved it. It had cool historical fiction, more robot characterization, an electrifying third act, and the annoying humor, while still present, was significantly reduced. It was the single most fun time I had at the cinemas that entire year. So you can imagine I was stoked when Michael Bay announced that he would be directing another one. I couldn't wait to see him up the ante with Transformers Age of Extinction. In the days before the movie's June 2014 release, however, my excitement diminished a little when it ended up receiving worse reviews than Revenge of the Fallen. Jeez, how did Michael Bay manage that? Had he not learned from the mistakes of Revenge of the Fallen as I thought he did? Nevertheless, I still had hopes, and so, I went into the movie teeth chattering, and I came out smiling, because Transformers Age of Extinction is freaking awesome! I could not recall another occasion when I was so insanely entertained at the theater. Don't get me wrong, Age of Extinction does have its share of flaws, which I will be getting into in this video, but I had so much stinking fun I barely noticed. I can understand the Transformers movies not being someone's cup of tea, but the fact that people were calling Age of Extinction worse than Revenge of the Fallen is just unfathomable to me, especially considering how the annoying humor of the first movie, that was amplified to a jarring degree in the second and reduced in the third, was virtually ditched in this one. So needless to say, I was ecstatic to find out that after about a year and a half of hesitation, Bay signed on to direct yet another one, Transformers The Last Knight. I was like a child looking forward to this movie, imagining that I was waiting 3 years for Optimus Prime's return from space, always looking to the stars and thinking of one of them as his soul. My anticipation for The Last Knight was unstoppable. When it hit theaters in June, I even took a vacation to Canada to see the movie with #1 Transformers fan, Alex Yu, leader of the Ragin Nation, a YouTube channel that brought the biggest Transformers fans from everywhere together. So there I was with a fellow fanboy going into The Last Knight, so ready to cheer my head off, so ready to come out screaming about how it's the greatest Transformers movie ever. I saw the reviews beforehand, but at that point I just shrugged it off thinking, yeah, I've heard that one before, critics. So with maximum hype, I saw Transformers The Last Knight, and what I was in for was an amazing, astounding, spectacular letdown. I couldn't believe it. It was almost surreal how underwhelming this movie was. I never dreamed that I would be exiting the theater with no hint of euphoria. But there I was, practically emotionless after seeing the movie that I was convinced there was no way on God's green planet could have disappointed me. The one positive that came out of my disappointment is that I now know that I'm good at not fandom menacing. I wasn't alone though, even Alex Yu was pretty down in the dumps after seeing it.
I have to say that I have never been more disappointed in a film. Seriously, I've never been more disappointed at all.
He got a lot of flack from his viewers for the fact that he gave Age of Extinction a pass, but not The Last Knight. So I have 2 goals with this list I'm about to present: to defend Alex Yu, and to explain to those followers of my own who question my disappointment saying, well, what did you expect? It's a Transformers movie. Now again, if Transformers isn't your thing, I totally get that. But I'm still perplexed at how many people, whether they're a fan or not, don't see much of a difference between each of these movies, the last two in particular. Granted, they all have a similar structure, but every series has its formula. I just see a very glaring drop in quality from Age of Extinction to The Last Knight. So without further ado, allow me to explain with the top 10 reasons why Age of Extinction and The Last Knight are different. Let's roll out!
You want the best? You get back in your hole and think about what you did!
Number 10. A percentage of both Age of Extinction and The Last Knight were filmed with IMAX 3D cameras. Now generally, IMAX cameras will be used for key action sequences in a big budget film, and then regular CinemaScope cameras for the remainder. So from the audience's perspective, the shot would fill up the entire screen during those action scenes, and about 80% of the screen is filled throughout the rest of the movie. This was the method used for Age of Extinction, with 60% of the movie filmed with IMAX cameras. Reports said that 98% of The Last Knight was filmed in IMAX, but this simply cannot be accurate. The whole movie switches back and forth between not 2, but 3 different aspect ratios. And not from sequence to sequence, it would switch on an average of every third cut.
Hey, the military doesn't want it this way, B. You gotta believe that. It's a new world order now, and these guys are calling the shots.
All they want is a home, and you know it. You push them, and they push right back.
After seeing the trailer a few times, I noticed the shifting of the aspect ratios, but I also observed that when the trailer played in the theater, the problem was fixed and every shot filled the screen. I assumed this would be what we would see in the full movie, at least on regular screens as opposed to IMAX theaters. But no, the problem was still present no matter what the format. I put this lowest on the list because having seen The Last Knight in IMAX on such a huge screen, I only seldom noticed. But still, I'm confused as to what the mindset was in simultaneously filming The Last Knight with 3 different cameras, especially since Age of Extinction utilized the IMAX in a much more sensible way.
You want the best? You get back in your hole and think about what you did!
Number 9. In a movie franchise that's mostly about big, explosive, mindless fun, there's only so much stuff that you can show without telling. So it does seem like kind of a nitpick to compare the exposition in Age of Extinction and The Last Knight, but Extinction for the most part explained only things that would have taken too much time to show. Such as when Joshua Joyce, the president of KSI, is giving a tour of their scientific breakthrough, or when we're treated to a brief recap of Chicago's destruction for any audiences who might not have seen Dark of the Moon. The only part that did feel forced in was right after that news footage.
As this committee knows, the invasion of Chicago was a defining day for our nation.
Okay, well if they already know, then why are you reminding them? Other than that, I never found the exposition to be too clunky. The Last Knight, on the other hand, goes way overboard with the exposition. Take for example the scene where Merlin the Wizard enters the cave to ask the Cybertronian Knights for the alien technology to help the Knights of the Round Table win the battle against the Saxons. Preceding this is the only voiceover in the entire medieval sequence.
Magic does exist. It was found long ago inside a crashed alien ship.
That was completely unnecessary. We could have pieced that together ourselves from what were immediately shown afterwards. There are several other times when it can show us what's going on, and instead just settles for exposition read by General Morshower, such as before Megatron assembles his Decepticon crew.
ID confirmed. Megatron. And get this, he made contact with TRF. Snatched up 2 CIA case officers, said he wants to negotiate.
How hard could it have been to show us that happening? It would have taken, what, another minute of screen time? I think they just wanted to find some way to get Morshower back in the series. When they can so easily show us these events, just having the characters talk about what's happening takes away from the enjoyment of the film. The Last Knight is just too talky, while Age of Extinction is a full-on visual experience that uses its minutes to better effect. Which brings me to my next point.
You want the best? You get back in your hole and think about what you did!
Number 8. One of the most criticized aspects of pretty much any of the Transformers movies is their lengthy runtimes. Now I like long movies if the runtime is justified, and because the Transformers movies have such an enormous scale and global stakes, a long runtime seems fitting. It's just a question of how well they make use of such a runtime. Age of Extinction is the longest of the 5, clocking in at a whopping 2 hours and 45 minutes. The Last Night was expected to be even longer, but turned out to be just a measly 2 hours and 29 minutes. Some reviewers said The Last Night was better than Age of Extinction, purely on the grounds that it was shorter.
Age of Extinction, which I still think is the worst in the franchise, was 2 hours and 45 minutes long. This one is actually the shortest since the first. According to IMDb, it's about 2 hours and 29 minutes, so that's nice.
Transformers 5 is a horrible movie. It's better than the fourth one, only because the fourth one was way too long, but it's still pretty much incoherent.
Now, I will confess, Age of Extinction is a bit too long. There are certain scenes that could have been truncated, like the part with Joshua Joyce in the elevator. It could have ended right after the tactical nuke joke, but it had to continue on to showcase Bing Bing Lee's fighting skills, cause they had to get in some China pandering. But aside from a few long-winded scenes like that, I really appreciated the pacing of Age of Extinction. The prolonged nature of the action scenes clearly makes sense for the apocalyptic stakes, but I also liked that the movie took its time at the beginning to establish who these people are, what they're going through, and what their motivations are. What? You actually care about the humans in a Transformers movie? I'll get to that. There's even an instance or two where it slows down for the sake of some calm atmosphere. When Cade Yeager is on his front porch staring up into the stars, with few words, you just get that he needs a moment to forget about his stress and concerns. And that vocalizing by Imagine Dragons just sounds wonderful.
Best thing that ever happened, Emily.
Rarely was there a moment of this movie I didn't find pleasant, and as a result, I couldn't notice how much time the movie ran for. When it was over, I felt like I had been in the theater for only 20 minutes. So how does The Last Night compare in this case? For a movie that's 2.5 hours, it feels really rushed. As established, there are several occasions where the movie will explain what's happening instead of taking an appropriate amount of time to show what's happening. And on top of that, the action scenes are pretty short-lived. More on that later. The movie zooms through every scene so quickly and rarely ever slows down to catch its breath. And when it's not rushing through scenes that are necessary, it dedicates scenes to characters who serve little to no purpose. Again, I'll elaborate on this later. So while Age of Extinction has a couple of removable scenes, The Last Night has removable scenes that should have been replaced with more time dedicated to more important things. Perhaps a thing like,
You get back in your hole and think about what you did!
Number 7. Continuity. This is something Age of Extinction had an abundance of compared to The Last Night. Before Age of Extinction came out, I was a little wary about its relation to the first three. With a new cast and new setting, it had the sense of reboot written all over it. The kind of reboot where it would seem as if the events of the predecessors had taken place, and yet there are contradictions in the movie that make that uncertain. So I was expecting something along the lines of Batman Forever. But, to my pleasant surprise, the events of Dark of the Moon are the cornerstone of the story in Age of Extinction. It made numerous direct references to the Battle of Chicago, and the premise was believable in the context of the series. And I couldn't identify anything that contradicted anything established in the original trilogy. Now, The Last Night clearly is a direct follow-up to Age of Extinction, picking up after the cliffhanger of that movie. And there are even some references to other installments, such as the visuals of Cybertron crushing the Ark and the Pyramid. But its continuation of the series is marred by dozens of contradictions or things never explained. To start off, we're never told what Optimus Prime did with the seed of the creators. He said he would take it where it could never be found, so are we to just assume that he dropped it off on some abandoned planet and then put himself into hypersleep for the rest of the way to Cybertron? Second, how did the Dinobots get from China to South Dakota? I suppose it's possible they took Lockdown's ship, which we do see in this movie, but only Grimlock and Slag are present. Where are Scorn and Strafe in this one? Did they get taken down by the TRF? If so, it was never referenced. At least in Age of Extinction we got confirmation that the main 5 Autobots were all that were left, and we got a couple of examples of Cemetery Wind's near success of hunting them down to extinction with the deaths of Ratchet and Leadfoot. Also, the new Autobot Day Trader collects the fully intact head of Starscream, despite the fact that in Dark of the Moon, this happened. Something that I actually wondered ever since seeing the trailer is that the question is raised of why the Transformers keep coming to Earth. Was this ever puzzled over? I always just assumed it was because of the message Optimus Prime sent out at the end of the first movie.
And I send this message to any surviving Autobots taking refuge among the stars. We are here. We are waiting.
And the most obvious error in The Last Knight, there's no reason ever given for why Galvatron is now Megatron again. This was especially troubling as the creation of Galvatron was an integral plot point in Age of Extinction. Megatron does appear to have the same red mark on his face that Quintessa gave to Optimus, so was it Quintessa that changed him back? When could that have happened? Did she really come to Earth before without Cybertron? That must have been an embarrassing moment for a space god like her.
Megatron, my perfect creation. Oh, clumsy me, I forgot the most important part of my evil plan. BRB.
Maybe these continuity errors were due to the new writing team, but with the accomplished writers of Iron Man and Black Hawk Down, I would have expected more attention to the details of the films they didn't work on. After seeing The Last Knight, I kinda wanted Aaron Kruger back.
You want the best? You get back in your hole and think about what you did!
Number 6.
One of the most common complaints toward the Transformers movies among general audiences is with the human characters. They believe that the human element should be scrapped altogether and be told entirely from the point of view of the robots. I disagree. To get the true sense that this is the human world becoming populated by these giant mechanical beings, I believe it's vital to have a portion of the movie be told from our level. This intent is conveyed to us by the tagline of the first movie, Their War, Our World. That's why the number 6 difference on the countdown is the human cast. In Age of Extinction, we have Cade Yeager, a Texas inventor trying to build something relevant to try and get out of debt. He and his daughter Tessa get swept into action when they come across Optimus Prime battle-scarred. Mark Wahlberg is great. He makes a much better snappy action hero than Shia LaBeouf.
You better have insurance. Insurance? You go get insurance on a freaking spaceship. Good luck with that, buddy. Is your car? Huh? Sweetie, hand me my alien gun.
Here you go.
Nicola Peltz as Tessa. Her overall performance wasn't awful, though during the action scene she has too much of the deer in the headlights look. My favorite example is this scene where everyone in the van is freaking out, and she's just sitting there like, whoa. Joshua Joyce is a colorful character, much more fun to have along for the ride than that obnoxious roommate from Revenge of the Fallen. And Stanley Tucci plays him pretty straight. And then there's Harold Attinger, head of Cemetery Wind, who aims to wipe all Transformers off the planet. Kelsey Grammer plays him like he is going for Oscar gold. His performance is beast, pun intended. The scenes where he and Cade face each other give this movie a darker edge than its predecessors.
There is a version of this conversation where you get to go back to your barn, and life as you know it will go on.
Really? What's the other version of this conversation? The one you sent in the hired help to murder my little girl? Or are you gonna man up and do it yourself?
What's your preference?
So the cast is terrific. As for the character development, I'll be honest, it's nothing spectacular. In fact, it's nothing that hasn't been done before. But it was enough to move the story along, and the characters at least weren't plot devices, as there are a few believable and tender moments with Cade and Tessa.
I made your mother a promise before she passed. Our baby's gonna be at her graduation, that's it. Look, in high school, boys know nothing. It's only later they turn into men.
So if you were older and wiser, I wouldn't exist.
That's not what I meant.
Frankly, I wish it was just the two of them traveling with the Autobots, and minus Tessa's boyfriend Shane, who in all honesty is an unlikable moron who has no respect for Cade as the father of his girlfriend.
If you want to cut and run, you better do it now. I'm gonna die trying.
Hey, I'm not here to help you get your daughter. You're here to help me get my girlfriend.
Man, if I was Cade right there, that would have been the time that I was asking to be handed my alien gun. Shane is the only thing about Age of Extinction I couldn't stand. Now we go to The Last Knight. There are a few pros worth noting. I was excited to see Wahlberg back as Cade, and truth be told, I like what they do with his character. He's now a meddlesome fugitive trying to help protect the Autobots from the TRF. But with the TRF seemingly impossible to overpower, he feels his heroism is for nothing. And with Optimus Prime gone and his daughter at college, he's so depressed that he can't think about little things like getting himself a haircut. Anthony Hopkins is Sir Edmund Burton, the last member of the Order of the Witwickens. Hopkins said that he had never had more fun filming a movie, and it shows.
Yes, but you want to know, don't you, dude? Why they keep coming here. To Earth. Right. I do so love perfect timing.
But that's where the pros end. Let's talk about the cons. Laura Haddock plays Vivian Wembley, who, being the last living descendant of Merlin, is the only one who can wield his staff and help save Earth. The romantic subplot with her and Cade is really forced. I just can't buy Cade falling in love again that fast after his first wife dying. Yeah, I know I shouldn't think about that stuff much in a Transformers movie, but if you're going to include a romantic subplot, at least make it believable. I had other expectations for the characters too. I was excited when it was announced that Stanley Tucci was going to be back, but as I watched the movie, I was bemused upon seeing that Tucci wasn't reprising the role of Joshua Joyce, and instead was playing Merlin. Isn't that confusing? I was also looking forward to the potentially strongest female lead in the series in the character of Isabella, played by Isabella Moner. Even in Age of Extinction, Tessa was mostly a damsel in distress in all the chaos. It wasn't until the last fight scene that she made herself useful. There is a great introduction to the character of Izzy. She's a 14-year-old tomboyish street kid who lives in the Chicago waste with a few surviving Autobots. She's tough, hard-hitting, and self-thinking. And there's even a mildly stirring scene when she watches the Autobot canopy get killed by the TRF. As a side note, I find it really funny how so many of us thought that that was Bumblebee dying in the trailer. Wait, is that Bumblebee? Is that Bumblebee?
It might coincide with that scene where Bumblebee looks like he's dying.
So not only do we have a strong new character, but Isabella Moner as an actress, she rocked. She really sold her lines. After seeing her in The Last Night, I'm calling it now that she will have a name made for herself in the upcoming Sicario 2. So after the strong setup, what does the character do for the movie? Pretty much nothing. She just bookends the film. Even in the final battle, she barely helps accomplish anything. Come on, you dedicate an entire trailer to Izzy monologuing about how awesome she is, and the movie doesn't even do anything with her?
I'm useful, I fix shit.
Gerard Carmichael's character is even more useless. He just tags along with Cade for the first third of the movie, just shouting dumb one-liners, some of which don't even make sense.
I can't go to jail, man. Hey! This is the real world, okay? Let's go! I can't go to jail, I'm too skinny for jail!
I'm too skinny for jail. Is that supposed to be a joke? Because what's the joke? Is he saying he's so skinny he'll just fit through the bars? Is that it? But easily the most pointless character has to be that guy with the glasses working for NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Are we seriously supposed to care about this guy? Every once in a while, the movie will cut to him trying to convince NASA that Cybertron is coming, and despite the image he has on his computer screen, they just laugh him off. I'm sorry, this guy is a scientist and he's trying to warn of more Transformer stuff approaching Earth, which is a norm in this universe. Just a thought, maybe you should listen to him? Not that I care, that whole subplot is worthless. So I guess the biggest difference is that regardless of whether or not I liked the characters in Age of Extinction, they all served a purpose. The Last Night spends too much time with characters who do nothing to further the story, and that places at the number 6 spot on the countdown.
What are you doing here?
I don't know.
You want the best? You get back in your hole and think about what you did!
Number 5. Although I really enjoyed Dark of the Moon, I agree with most others that it ended too abruptly. As soon as Optimus Prime finishes off Sentinel, we get a brief resolution to Sam and Carly's storyline, 3 final lines from Optimus, and next thing we know the name Michael Bay is on screen. This is yet another area that Bay improved upon in Age of Extinction. This time around, after Lockdown is defeated, we get a well-acted resolution to the human story. Tessa tells her dad that he was her hero all her life, they all make up with Joshua, and we get a solid goodbye to the Dinobots. And then, the movie concludes with one of the coolest cliffhangers ever. Optimus Prime bids farewell to Cade and the other Autobots to take off into space and confront the unknown creators, topping it off with this shot of him blasting past the sun, and then his final message.
I am Optimus Prime, and this message is to my creators. Leave planet Earth alone. 'Cause I'm coming for you.
In the words of Crosshairs in The Last Night,
love that guy. Goosebumps every time.
Oh yeah. How the heck do robots get goosebumps? So knowing that Age of Extinction was the first in a new trilogy, would The Last Night end on an even cooler note of uncertainty? Nope, not at all. The cliffhanger is there, but it's not nearly as exhilarating. We should be given a massive feeling that something unspeakably ominous is going to happen, now that we know that Unicron, Cybertron's prehistoric enemy, is Earth. But the implication of it is so low-key, it's reduced to a single line of narration from Optimus. And the ending goes down the inconclusive route of Dark of the Moon again, with Optimus' speech starting right after he saves Cade and Vivian. It just didn't get me hyped for the 6th movie the way the end of Age of Extinction got me hyped for The Last Night. At the end of the screening for Age of Extinction I attended, the audience, including myself, roared with applause. At the end of the screening for The Last Night I attended, no one applauded. Come on, Michael Bay, if you're gonna make your movies this long, you always gotta go out with a bang. One that isn't one of the trillion other bangs.
You want the best? You get back in your hole and think about what you did!
Number 4. Another thing that made me less able to enjoy The Last Night is that out of the 5 films, it's the most implausible. Now you may be thinking, what? You can actually take these movies seriously? No. I mean, it clearly goes without saying that you need to suspend some disbelief to enjoy movies about giant robots from outer space. Once you accept that this is the kind of universe that these movies take place in, you put more critique into how believable they are within that environment. Most of this has to do with the Transformers' history on Earth. Each one of these movies reveals a piece of Earth's history that the Transformers were a huge part of, with most or all humans being unaware. In Age of Extinction, it's discovered that the Quintessons terraformed the planet and in the process wiped out the dinosaurs. Well, since no one knows what happened to the dinosaurs, sure, why not? Even in Dark of the Moon, we learn that a government conspiracy hid the fact that Apollo 11's essential mission was to investigate a Cybertronian spacecraft that crash-landed on the moon. A bit more far-fetched, but I can still go along with it. The Last Night, however, is where the shark was jumped. This time, it's discovered that a dozen Transformers helped King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table win the war against the Saxons. Now that much I can buy, considering the fact that the existence of King Arthur himself is debated. But this one instance of Transformers and humans coexisting is just the beginning. Midway into the film, Sir Edmund Burton gives Cade and Vivian a tour of this museum of his, which contains this so-called secret history of Transformers, featuring Cybertronian artifacts and documentations of Transformers fighting alongside humans for the last 1600 years. An example shown to us is Bumblebee rolling in with soldiers to fight the Nazis who, I guess, have taken over Blenheim Palace, the home of Winston Churchill. Yeah, I really wish there was more context given to that scene, especially considering how the production team went to the trouble of actually filming on location and actually having the place draped in swastika flags. I feel strongly that there should have been a much more respectful payoff. Anyway, so this secret society known as the Order of the Witwickens has been headed up by world leaders like Churchill, as well as the US presidents and Queen Elizabeth, artists like Shakespeare and Mozart, geniuses like Einstein, Galileo, and Stephen Hawking, authors like Arthur C. Clarke, and even abolitionists like Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass. You could summarize by saying every famous figure who's made a positive impact on the world, but then again there's a photo of Al Gore on the wall. And over the course of all that time, this one society has managed to keep the Transformers' presence on Earth completely hidden from the public. Okay, I could understand like making a few appearances before humans and then disappearing into mythology, but 1600 years worth of history of Transformers fighting for humans, and we're expected to believe that this was all kept secret? That there were no witnesses to any of these events, or even any renegades in the society who went, "Tell everyone, we got giant alien robots fighting for us, get the word out, the world deserves to know that a watch killed Hitler." And if the Autobots have been interacting with humans for this long, why did they need to go on the internet to learn English in the first movie? This entire sequence is meant to be the setup for the Transformers cinematic universe, which will be comprised of period spin-offs that take place during this secret history, including next year's Bumblebee film, set in 1987. I can't say I'm not looking forward to these spin-offs, it's just that The Last Night feels like the Batman v Superman of Transformers, and that it's so bent on setting up its cinematic universe that it doesn't try to do so in a way that makes sense. Bottom line, I had no problem buying into the science fiction of Age of Extinction. With The Last Night, my suspension of disbelief reached its breaking point, and frankly, it's probably going to be a pet peeve in the upcoming spin-offs whenever the Witwicken Order takes center stage.
You want the best? You get back in your hole and think about what you did!
Number 3. Now, even though I do think a human story is necessary in these movies, it is called Transformers, so the humans shouldn't overshadow the robots. Out of all the films in the series, Age of Extinction has the best balance of both. It's the first time in the series where the Autobots have a substantial amount of interaction and screen time. The new robots, Drift, Hound, and Crosshairs, have enjoyable banter amongst each other, and they all have distinguishable designs and personas. Hound is my favorite of the trio, probably because he's essentially the metallic version of Walter Sobchak from The Big Lebowski. And Bumblebee's got a lot of funny scenes, like when he gets to humiliate that idiot Shane.
What did you touch?
I told you, homeboy, you can't touch this.
While most fans were disappointed by the limited presence of the Dinobots, I expected them to be in the final moments of the film, because they were always shown at the very end of the trailers. And the movie makes the most of every moment they were on screen. And then there's Lockdown, the most menacing villain in the series. He brings Ratchet to a gruesome demise, which enrages Optimus when he finds out. I wish Ironhide had such an effective death scene. He was always my favorite of the secondary Autobots, and his death in Dark of the Moon was never mourned or mentioned, and had no bearing on the plot. Please include Ironhide in the spin-offs. So overall, Age of Extinction had very memorable robot scenes and characters. And of course, their transformation ability enables Michael Bay's expertise in showcasing the hottest new models of cars and trucks. Fun fact, the script for Age of Extinction actually includes what Bay says whenever someone brings old cars onto the sets of his movies.
What the hell is going on here? Huh? What's with this vintage crap? What do you think it is that we make here? We make poetry. We're poets. You one mistake. One. Understood? It certainly won't. So let's get this pathetic thing out of here. And you too.
The Last Night, on the other hand, really wasted the Transformers' presence. You see a lot of various Transformers, but several of them, like this excavator bot, appear in literally one shot and then are never seen again. Even the main Autobots are given very insignificant roles in the movie. They do little more than just bicker once or twice. As for the Decepticons, they're obviously intended to be memorable villains, because they're all introduced in Suicide Squad fashion, a scene that really feels out of Transformers style. But after being given such a huge build-up, all of them, with the exception of Nitro Zeus, are instantly killed off in their first confrontation with the Autobots. Onslaught, who was said to have an enormously devastating weapon called the Decapitator, and whose alt mode is a green heavy-duty tow truck, I was looking forward to seeing this thing in action, but he just gets mowed down right off the bat by Drift and Crosshairs. He doesn't put up any kind of fight, and we never even see him transform. Even Megatron, despite his cool new design, doesn't do anything for the movie beyond being Quintessa's minion. I thought for once at least we would get that full-on boss fight between him and Optimus, but during the final battle, he gets killed off just as easily as the other Decepticons. Ah well, there's always going to be another opportunity for that Optimus-Megatron fight. Megatron has died 3 times now, he's sure to bounce right back sooner or later. But in The Last Night alone, he was utterly wasted. Was there anything memorable about Megatron in this movie? Well, he does have one good comeback line.
Go to hell!
This planet is hell.
You got the touch! You got the power!
The Dinobots, half of them, are back, sort of. They're there in the junkyard with the other Autobots near the beginning, so you think they're going to have more screen time than last time, but instead, their role in Age of Extinction was cut in half for this one. We get a scene of Grimlock acting like a mischievous puppy, and then 1 or 2 shots of him and Slag causing some mayhem, and then they're gone from the movie. There was a perfectly good opportunity for them to join the final battle along with the Autobots, but again, more potential wasted. And those new mini Dinobots could have been there to maybe claw at Decepticons' faces or something, but they're only in the movie for cuteness. Speaking of which, where did the mini Dinobots come from anyway? Do the Dinobots lay metallic eggs? Is procreation really a thing with Cybertronian beings?
You're a hell of a father, Kate, don't forget it. Though my dad never called me.
Okay, so yes, the Transformers do procreate. Try figuring out how that works. Nope, we are not taking that into account. The only robot that's given a sufficient role in The Last Night is British K2SO, Cogman, and he doesn't even resemble a Transformer. For a good chunk of the movie, he's the only robot present, and as a result, in a few of those moments, I came darn close to forgetting that I was watching a Transformers movie. And as a character, Cogman irritated me. That scene where dramatic music starts playing while Edmund Burton tells Cade that he's the last knight, and it turns out that the music was Cogman playing the organ, I was thinking, is this movie seriously ripping a joke straight out of Ice Age 5? So in the end, Age of Extinction really lived up to the title of the series. The Last Night, not so much.
You want the best? You get back in your hole and think about what you did!
Number 2. You may be wondering why I didn't bring up Optimus Prime on the last slot. The reason is because he deserves his own place on the list. If someone were to challenge my favoring of Age of Extinction over the other movies by telling me, name one thing that Age of Extinction does that none of the other movies do, I'd be able to answer in a heartbeat. Optimus Prime has an arc. Now even those who think Michael Bay did a terrible job adapting the cartoon to live action do seem to agree that the one thing he always did right was Optimus Prime.
Michael, whatever you do with this franchise, just remember, I died for your sins. Even though I died in one of your sins.
But still, Age of Extinction is the first time in the live-action franchise that Optimus is more than just a two-dimensional freedom fighter. Actually, he's kind of the opposite. You can now think of the last line from Dark of the Moon as foreshadowing to Optimus's 180 in Age of Extinction.
But the day will never come that we forsake this planet and its people.
Now that the humans want to exterminate all Transformers for power and profit, Optimus is enraged that they are now showing no gratitude for how he and his brethren have fought for them. He even goes against the standards he set for himself in the past.
I have sworn to never kill humans, but when I find out who's behind this, he's going to die.
But after working with Cade, he's reminded of the good in humanity that's worth fighting for. The scene where he and Cade are talking in the night ship, it's just a beautiful sequence of human-robot interaction.
How many more of my kind must be sacrificed to atone for your mistakes?
What do you think being human means? That's what we do. We make mistakes. When I fixed you, it was for a reward. That was it. And it was me making a mistake. Without it, you wouldn't be here. You gotta have faith, Prime. In who we can be.
So when Optimus blasts off into space at the end of the movie, I couldn't wait to see what was going to happen when he returned to Earth. And when I saw the first trailer for The Last Night, what did I get? Whoa! What? What?
Forgive me.
Oh no. Oh. Optimus Prime is evil. This was the big selling point for The Last Night. The main poster had Optimus reprogrammed as Nemesis Prime, standing over a possibly lifeless Bumblebee, along with this brilliant tagline. I can imagine being someone from the 80s who thinks of Optimus as a childhood icon, and was then being told, rethink your heroes. So what were they going to do with this new twist? While a lot of fans thought that Optimus was going to end up killing Bumblebee, I thought from the trailers when Cade tells Lennox,
"We're not giving up on Prime, okay?"
that they were going to stop Optimus from finishing Bumblebee off, and under Cade's orders, they had to shut Optimus down without completely killing him, and the movie would end with them trying to find a way to bring him back as a good guy again. How did it really play out in the movie? Optimus and Bumblebee fight for all of 1 minute, Bumblebee's voice just randomly comes back without any rhyme or reason.
I am Bumblebee, your oldest friend.
And the sound of it is enough to snap Optimus out of being evil. This is a scene that has often been compared to Martha! Man, this really is the Batman v Superman of Transformers. To build up this edgy new twist just to have it get resolved instantly and in such a nonsensical way was downright insulting. Okay, but was there anything else cool Optimus got to do for the rest of the movie? Yes. If you enjoy hearing him announce who he is over and over.
I am Optimus Prime. I am Optimus Prime. I am Optimus Prime. Did you forget who I am?
How could I forget? You've only been reminding me every 5 minutes. Age of Extinction gave us a great new take on the character of Optimus. Anyone who was looking forward to that in the last night, they got screwed big time.
What have I done?
You were the best. You get back in your hole and think about what you did.
Number 1. If you haven't guessed yet, I am an unabashed Michael Bay apologist, so when it came to the Transformers movies, he was always the man for the job. And because this is why people go to the Transformers movies, the number one reason why Age of Extinction and The Last Knight are different is because of their action sequences. I still stand by my word that no one directs action better than Michael Bay. It's more than just non-stop explosions, it's the wild inventiveness and freneticism of the action. It's an immersive experience that makes me feel like I'm in the middle of all hell breaking loose. A common complaint people have with Bay's action scenes is that they're shot in such a way that they can't tell what's going on. I must be an alien or something because I can always tell what's going on. The way Bay films action is ingenious. He knows just how much to shake up the camera, just when to slow the shot down, and just when for a scene to cut and what to cut to, like giving us a close-up of the people running away from the destruction, conveying the danger they're just inches ahead of, and then zooming out to show the maximum damage that destruction is doing. With Transformers Age of Extinction, Bay completely outdid himself. All of the action sequences are absolutely euphoric. There's a massive variety of robot warring, car chases, aerial battles, gunplay, and stupendous destruction. One particularly exhilarating sequence is the Texas chase with the human characters trying to escape Cemetery Wind during a battle between Optimus and Lockdown, with Optimus helping them out by making this move.
And you know what the word for that is? Awesome? Bingo.
Don't get me started on how I lost my voice cheering during the Dinobot cavalry charge. Plus, there are a few new environments for both humans and robots, with Cade, Tessa, and Shane fighting their way through an alien ship, and the Autobots charging through a low-clearance office building. Another thing Michael Bay is given way too little credit for is that he never settles for CGI when he doesn't need to. When the possibility is there, he uses practical effects. When Lockdown's ship is sucking up metal objects and dropping them, they're really using wires to lift that bus into the air with stunt people falling out the windows. And the actors are really running ahead of that chain of explosions. The effects, stunts, and creativity all add up to one heck of a mind-blowing roller coaster ride. Age of Extinction piles on climax after climax, and it never gets boring. So going into The Last Knight, I was pumped to see what Michael Bay was going to come up with next. He said it was going to be his last Transformers film, so I predicted that the final battle scene with Cybertron colliding with Earth was going to be his mic drop. I was sure I was in for another epic time at the movies. And not really. Bay's direction in The Last Knight was strangely detached. Not that the action scenes were badly shot, but they were just so lacking in both structure and creativity. The chase scene through London was comprised of just a couple of crashes here, a few explosions there, and it's called good. And as established, the Decepticons are way too easily defeated. Bumblebee takes out Barricade in one foul swoop, he takes out Nitro Zeus in one foul swoop, Optimus defeats Megatron with a simple roundhouse kick, and even when it seems the Decepticons get the upper hand, it still has no impact. When Megatron fires at Hound and huge explosions go off around him, you wonder what damage was done. But next time we see Hound, he's alive and well. Not to mention that scene recycles one of John Goodman's recorded lines from Age of Extinction.
Come and get some, you little bitch! Come and get some, you little bitch!
The whole movie is like this. The action scenes start and end abruptly without a proper lead-in or conclusion. You'd be hard-pressed to find one complete action sequence in The Last Knight. Even the final battle is just a big jumbled mess. Were there any cool parts? Absolutely, like Slag pounding some TRF vehicles, a few shots of the medieval siege, Optimus Prime saving Cade and Vivian and then blasting out of the rubble in truck mode, and Bumblebee using his new ability where he regenerates himself Iron Giant style. There were even some good transformation scenes, like when Bumblebee partially transforms while still rolling on his chassis. That's something we never seen a Transformer do before. But that's it. It's just a few intermittently cool moments, not entire sequences that are so memorably thrilling. During those few moments I thought, okay, now the movie's getting awesome. And it never really did. For the rest of the movie I was thinking, come on Michael Bay, just do your thing, man. Michael Bay even seemed detached from his knack for practical effects. For example, even though the little robot Squeaks is a physical prop, it wasn't Bay's initial plan to make him that way. It was Isabella Monaire's idea. In the end, instead of leaving Transformers with a mic drop, Michael Bay left more like this.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, let's thank Michael Bay for joining us.
So that about does it for the list. Final thoughts? Transformers Age of Extinction is popcorn entertainment at its finest. It's got incredible action scenes, great music, and fun characters, most of them, and is overall just a great time at the movies. I never got what was so detested about it. I mean, let's be honest, you can't hate a movie with a scene like this. Ah yes, every 8-year-old boy's fantasy, turning a My Little Pony into a gun. The Last Night, though, is one of the most disappointing movies ever for me. It was a lot like last year's Blair Witch, in that it had so much potential to be a great follow-up, and just did the bare minimum with it. Is The Last Night the worst of the series? Well, no, I'd still probably give my vote to Revenge of the Fallen. But when I feel the need for some testosterone to flow, I'd be popping in Age of Extinction, if not the first one or Dark of the Moon. So you might be wondering, if I think there was such a big difference between these two movies, what was the cause? I have a pretty good idea of what happened. I believe it has to do with the reasons why Michael Bay signed on to direct each of them. After doing Dark of the Moon, Bay said he was done, but he was inspired to do Age of Extinction when he saw cheering fans in line for the Transformers 3D ride at Universal Studios, the line stretching for blocks. Seeing those enthusiastic fans really made him want to bring smiles to them once again. In contrast, after saying that Age of Extinction was his last, it seems that instead of being inspired, he was bribed into coming back for The Last Night, with Paramount offering him moolah. This was what he said upon announcement. "I have to pass the reins to someone else. J.J. Abrams told me, you're the only guy that could do this, but it's time to move on. One more." That sure sounds like a pretty reluctant agreement, and it kinda shows in how Bay was really phoning it in with The Last Night. I was hyped when Bay made the announcement, but in retrospect, I shouldn't have been all that excited when he didn't seem to be. Once again, Bay says he's finished with helming Transformers movies, and as much as I hate to say it, it probably is time for him to leave the series behind. He's talked about some smaller serious projects that he seems really passionate about, and I'll no doubt look forward to it. Bay has shown in the past that he can excel when it comes to the serious stuff. As for Transformers, it's far from over. The writer's room claims to have enough material for 14 more movies. I don't know how many of them are actually going to be made, but first on the list is the aforementioned Bumblebee spin-off coming December of next year, helmed by Travis Knight, director of Kubo and the Two Strings, and starring the very talented Haley Steinfeld. Personally, I can't wait for the new setting of 1987 LA and for the new director's vision. Until then, I'll continue to have a blast with every metal-clinging minute of awesomeness Michael Bay delivered with Transformers, even if it wasn't much more than meets the eye. So what are your thoughts? Do you agree with my points? Disagree? And what Transformers movies do you like or dislike? Or do you hate them all, or do you love them all? Whatever it be, let me know in the comments. That's a wrap. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like if you liked, subscribe for more. This is Pop Culture. I'm Alex Pop.